Thanks for joining us on Sheridan County Ag Update. Today I have with me some gentlemen from Rooted in Wyoming. We want to give a quick shout out to our sponsors and say thank you to Heartland Kubota and True Built Builders for sponsoring our podcast today. With me is Micah Most, who's a board member with the Rooted in Wyoming, and Ian Wallace, who is the program and education.
I changed my last name.
Oh, okay. Shoot.
So I'm Ian Cannon Wallace.
Okay. Ian, my apologies.
No, that's all right.
Knew him a long time ago. Yeah. So anyways, yes, gentlemen, thank you for joining us today.
Sure.
All right. Well, let's talk about Rooted in Wyoming, what it is, and let's really talk about the seed program that's going on right now.
Oh, absolutely. We have about 550 students slated to come start seeds with us.
Wow.
That's a lot. Thankfully, they only come in batches of 20, 30, 40, or 50 usually. I think we've done 4 of those programs, and maybe we've got about 7 or 8 left to go.
Okay.
And these are mostly early elementary school students. So we've had kindergartners, first graders, and the program is really geared towards about a second grade level. So we can kind of catch that sweep of those early elementary students.
And how fun to play in the dirt.
They get to play in the dirt. They get to play in the dirt twice, actually. We teach them about soil composition. We talk about sand, silt, and clay, get the idea of what a loam is. And then the big picture that sort of ties it all together is that, we want people to be healthy, and healthy soils grow healthy plants and produce more food. So it all connects back to healthy soils. They get to learn, what plants do for the soil ecosystem to create a rich humus. And then they get to meet worms. We've got a whole colony of composting worms that they get to play with and learn about. And then they actually make something that's called a vermicompost or a worm compost tea. So they take the worm castings, dip it in some water, and then they use that juice to inoculate the seeds that they plant. So teaching them this big cycle that plants support the life in the soil, and then the life in the soil supports the plants in turn, and they get to play with dirt in all stages of that. And that's, I think, the part they like that the most.
I want to go back to second grade so I can go play in the dirt. So how does this work? Do they sign up through the school? Is it through the schools, the elementary schools?
Yeah, so we've tried to cast as wide a net as we possibly can. Outreach to all the elementary schools in the county. And we've had takers from all 3 school districts. This is the first year we've had School District 3 students coming. They'll be coming, I think, next Wednesday. So we're really excited about that. We've also tried to put the word out to all the parochial schools, any of the religious education schools. In years past, we've had takers from the homeschool community. We tried reaching out. We didn't hear from any of those folks. So if anybody's listening to the podcast and they say, oh, I know a group who would be interested in something like that, feel free to connect us. We're always looking for groups who are interested in hands-on learning. Our mission is to provide a connection for community to local food. And collaboration is one of our core values. So we like to bring people together, and programs like this are great for kids who are in school. We worked with the Wildflower Learning Community, which is a private school that is run there on Brundage Street.
Okay.
And they have a very small student body, but very curious. And their educational method is a lot more student-driven, kind of like if you've ever heard of Montessori. It's the approach where they let the kids take the lead and what it is they want to learn, and then the teachers sort of come alongside and provide that support as tutors. They were a lot of fun because they asked questions that most kids don't think to ask, and they really got in there hands-on because they're practiced at that. So that was fun to get to work with them.
Fun.
Yeah.
Man. Yeah, I want to go back. Quality Kubota machinery and customer care from the heart. Proudly serving Sheridan and the surrounding areas since 1996. Go online to heartlandkubota.com or stop by Heartland Kubota, 2450 Heartland Drive. So you're starting these kids at this young age learning about how to grow your own food, or if they want to grow some flowers too, but how to grow their own food. So where does it go from there? Do they get to see these plants later on? Do they get to help plant them? Where does it go from the seed?
Yeah, absolutely. So a big focus of the programming this year has been a seed to cafeteria model. So Ian and our executive director, David, have worked really closely with the school district's food service programs to identify specific crops that they can utilize in the kitchens, and then serve those out to the students during mealtime. And so our goal has been to kind of cultivate this list of crops that then are being started in these seed starting programs, and then those will eventually return back to the school on the lunch plates of the students.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're really looking forward to, in the next few weeks, we'll start to schedule times for those last couple weeks of school where we can start to transplant some of the hardier crops, especially if the weather forecasts look good. And then those first few weeks of summer, really getting out into the school gardens and trying to get the word out to those families, hey, if you had a student who is in seed starting, or even if you're just curious, we'll be there at X day on this time, and we'll be transplanting crops into the school gardens. What was surprising and exciting when the Arvada Claremont students signed up to come, so they've got 37 students from pre-K through 6th grade, and they're all coming together, the whole range of them. And I said to myself, well, this is new. They've never come before. And to my knowledge, they don't have a school garden. And so that got the ball rolling for me to be like, well, we want to promise a follow through. The purpose isn't just seed starting, but it's a garden to cafeteria seed starting. So I reached back out and I said, hey, how do we make sure that your students can see some benefit from this down the line, right? I would hate for them to drive all the way into Sheridan. It's a haul on the bus to plant seeds and then not see anything from that without connecting those dots through to harvest. And I looped in as many people who I knew from out there as possible on that communication. I included Rachel Brugalt, who's a vegetable grower out toward Ucross, and Carol Laresh, who ran Clear Creek Valley Produce for many, many years, and they live out past Claremont. And Carol got back to us and said, hey, we would be willing to host a crop this year. And she's such an interesting and generous person. She's been heavily involved in the formation of the food forest that's down by Thornrider Park, and just a collaborative, creative person and a lovely human being. So we all got together with Chase Christensen, who's their principal and superintendent, and their cook, Aubrey Holland, and had a fantastic conversation. And I don't want to say too much more about it because it's early stages, but suffice it to say that Mr. Christensen is really interested in developing something longer term that, those communities out there have a deep connection to agriculture. And we're just tickled that they're willing to show up and collaborate and take the ball and run with it, so to speak. But that's going to be a lot of fun, and I can't wait to meet those kids.
Oh, wow. That's awesome to hear. I mean, and yes, there is still a huge agriculture population on that side of the county. You want a good old fashioned meal, go to a branding out there. If they invite you, you go.
What was interesting when we were driving out there, I was trying to peek at the various houses along the side of Highway 14 and thinking, a lot of these folks have their own gardens. When you're this far from town, it just really helps. But when we brought that up to Mr. Christensen, he said, about maybe over a third of his students are actually from out of district. So
Wow.
they are brought in from Buffalo or from Sheridan or even all the way over from Gillette. And so that's kind of interesting that there's a real mixture of kids who are from there and who maybe have that background, but maybe also some that don't. And so we definitely want to reach all those different communities because we believe strongly everybody needs to have a hand in where their food comes from in one way or another. That's important to us.
You know, I had the ladies up here from the Sheridan County Fair, the open class, and we were talking about the pie making and the canning and how that used to just be something that was in everybody's kitchens back in the day. And it's just too convenient to run to the grocery store and buy it now. But I think when the year of COVID hit and things got so tight with the grocery stores, that really opened people's eyes back up to, hey, I should learn how to do these things. I should learn how to garden. I should learn how to make stuff. I should have my backyard chickens and those sorts of things. And now I think you're seeing that more and more coming into fruition with folks.
Yeah, absolutely. So I also work as the extension educator in Johnson County, and we have had a lot of people move into our community from other places, kind of during the post-COVID era. And a lot of them have gardening skills that they bring with them, but they're in a new environment now. And gardening in Wyoming is much different than gardening in other places. So I've worked a lot with that population and helping them try to figure out how to garden here. And so one thing I'm really excited about through Rooted in Wyoming is we're teaching those kids from a young age. We're giving them those skills and trying to help kind of patch through some of that information that wasn't handed down or maybe missed a generation in there somewhere as people are moving into this new environment. So those skills don't necessarily come naturally, but there's so much to learn, and it's so fun to get in there and have your hands in the dirt right there next to all of the students that are there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Making plans for building a new barn, shop, or commercial building? Don't do any planning without a call to Sheridan's premier post-frame building and homes builder, True Built Builders, online at truebuiltbuilders.com. So if somebody has a child that's listening that really wants to do this and maybe they missed something through the schools, can they reach out to you guys?
Absolutely.
To get them involved?
For sure. So we're hopeful that soon we'll have our own teaching garden space. But we also plan to do summer garden programs at as many of our partner gardens as we can. Probably once a month, we'll be at each and every one of our gardens. So through the summer, that'll be 3 visits to each garden. And I think there's about 15 of those that are good sites for that. We've got more partners than those 15, but these would be places like the Meadowlark School Garden, Henry A. Coffeen School Garden. Bighorn has a garden called Ram Harvest. The Tongue River Valley Community Center has a garden called Eagle's Nest. And so we hope to be at each of these sites once a month through the summer to do a little program where the kids can have a hands-on learning experience that's also helpful to the garden, that fits in with what is happening in the garden at that time of year, whether it's early June or late June, mid-August, whatever it is. And though we're going to work hard on getting those dates out there to the community so people can find that. Things like that you'll be able to find on our website. A lot of this is relatively new. Rooted in Wyoming has benefited from almost 100 years of collective volunteer board experience, if you added up all the years of all the board members who've pitched in. And it really did start as a working board that there wasn't a staff at first, and it was all volunteer board contribution that got gardens built at Bighorn Elementary, at Woodland Park, at Coffeen. They were there and showing up and helping me. I used to be the librarian at Meadowlark Elementary, and we got a garden started there. This effort was pretty monumental on the part of the board. Bonnie Gregory was a huge instrumental force in that. And it isn't to say that there aren't still folks, just like we've run into, out at Arvada Claremont, who might be interested in developing a garden space. And we're curious and always open to having conversations like that. But at a certain point, once there are gardens with all of these partners, it's exciting to think about how we can start partnering in terms of programming and those learning opportunities, which is, I'm just in seventh heaven in this role as the program and outreach coordinator, because I have a degree in education and I have experience working with kids. So I get to bring my background growing up in a greenhouse and, just my passion for plants and science together with that education piece. And if folks are looking for a way to meet us in a garden, there are going to be opportunities through the summer for sure. So look out for them.
Great. Well, if you get us the dates up here to Sheridan Media, we will put those on our community calendar. And we have a new community calendar partner with Sheridan Travel and Tourism and the Chamber and the Sheridan Press. So be sure and get us that information and we can get that on the community calendar.
We heard about the new calendar.
Yes.
That is very exciting.
It's very exciting. It's nice to have everything in one spot.
Yay.
for anybody planning something going on in town,
We'll be sure to get those times.
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. So I was Cheney, well, it used to be Cheney Peterson, Cheney Byerly from she's the teacher up here at the ag department.
Yeah.
Cheney was up here last fall and we were talking about the Holly Ponds property with the greenhouses and even getting the ag kids and the high school kids involved with that. And I know she was super excited to get those kids involved. And so what a neat process for these young kids to elementary to get to do it. And then hopefully in the future, as they continue on, they'll see that in through their high school years.
Those greenhouses are such an interesting piece of infrastructure, and it is really exciting to watch them come back to life. The two elementary schools that are right in the neighborhood of Sheridan High School are Sagebrush and Highland Park. And so we're having students who want to do seed starting from those two elementaries come to the 5th Street greenhouse. It saves them a half an hour round trip bus ride out to the Sheridan Research and Extension Center greenhouses. And the person who they've hired there at the school district to coordinate that greenhouse space is just fantastic. Her name's Shaylee Cooper, and she is just such a collaborative person, a real team player, and anything that she doesn't know yet, she is like on it and figuring it out and learning a ton. And the hydroponics hopefully are going to be up and running there really soon.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I like to go down to the Smith Alley and watch the hydroponics garden there. It's fun. It's relaxing. I know it sounds crazy, but it's relaxing.
No, it's true. We talk about the importance of, the idea of self-sufficiency is maybe a little bit of a myth. We're all in this together, but the fact that you really can provide for yourself and the people around you significantly if you put in the time and effort. And like Micah was saying, it's harder to do here in Wyoming, but it can be done. But there's another aspect to being out in the garden, working with plants. It is rewarding to the soul, and that's something we try to be as purposeful about as we can in all of our projects. Is there's an aesthetic aspect, there's an aspect of play, there's an aspect of beauty to building a garden and to being in a garden. We try to include that in the programs from beginning to end. Well,
and I don't know how much you guys follow through. I'm sure Micah, being the extension agent, a lot of times at the end of the gardening season, you have beef project kids, the 4-H and FFA beef project kids, that you then can take some of those pumpkin plant tops, your corn stalks, and you actually can put that into some of their feeds. So you have a continuous thing coming, it gets used. And so it's kind of cool to be able to see that, how it all comes full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. That's not something we've discussed yet with Rooted in Wyoming, but from the soil health perspective, integrating livestock is one of those key elements in closing the loop between waste and byproducts and being able to reuse and repurpose things along the way. So I'm not sure how we would tackle that logistically, but those opportunities are out there for sure.
Yeah, Micah, the last time you and I sat down, we were talking about 4-H. I didn't grow up in 4-H, but a lot of my friends who I grew up with did it, and I saw how much they enjoyed it. And it's definitely on my to-do list, not even too far down my to-do list, to reach out to our 4-H folks here, because long-term we want that collaboration to be really tight, because it does all connect. And if we're talking about doing summer garden programming, there's an aspect there where maybe there are students who are interested in doing 4-H projects who don't have the best garden space. Well, we've got lots of garden spaces that we can connect them with. So that's
that'd be
something that
great.
we're really curious about, how something like that might look, and maybe even being able to leverage, my time in the summer, being able to teach about some of the things that we're working on right there in that 4-H space. So
I can tell you right now that Emily Swinier is probably jumping up and down and just saying, yes, thank you. Because
that's who I have on my to-do list. I email Emily Swinier. It's right there. So we sat down together. It's probably been close to 8 years ago, 7 years ago, just to talk about Lego robots, and so it'll be good to catch back up with her.
Yes.
Because it's been a minute.
Well, and I'm sure she'll probably kind of maybe mention that they need judges for a lot of their indoor projects, which includes the vegetables and gardening. So, you might get roped into that. Not sure, but probably.
I'm okay with that. How about you, Micah?
Oh, yeah. Well, I guess as an educator, I don't know that I'm necessarily in the position to be doing that as a community volunteer.
Okay.
Yes, volunteers are always a good thing. And I was going to mention as well, my first interaction with Rooted in Wyoming was as a community volunteer helping with the seed starting. And there's no way that we would be able to accomplish everything that we do through those programs without all of our dedicated volunteers through the community. So I want to take a moment to thank everyone who has been or will maybe be involved in those ventures in the future. And
Absolutely.
Ian, maybe you want to speak to that a little more.
We've been really lucky these first few rounds of seed starting to get the ball rolling on getting volunteers signed up. We reached out to the National Honor Society at Sheridan High School, and those students are just gems. They're really neat people, and they've shown up in a big way. I think we've had at least a dozen of them, maybe more, come and help out these first 4 events. And then a whole range of other folks, young and old, from across the community have signed up to come help us out. So if anyone's listening and they're interested, please reach out to us, because we've always got projects going, work days that you could come and help out one day. And also we're working on scheduling out calendars for these school gardens to help make sure they can be weeded and watered, so that they're as productive as possible for the cafeterias at the end of the summer. And if anybody's interested in being a part of that, if you live next door to a school, or if you've got grandkids at one of the schools in the county, please let us know. We'd love to connect you with the space, and especially if you have gardening expertise, but even if you don't.
And what's the best way to reach out? Through your website or phone number?
Sure, you can always find our contact information at our website, and our website is rootedinwyoming.org.
Okay. Well, I know that you guys, we touched a little bit about the community gardens. There's several that I had no idea about. When I was looking on your website, I could not believe there was that many. So I'm sure there's other people out there that don't know it. How do you get involved with those? And what does that look like? It's probably grown over the years since you guys started Rooted in Wyoming.
Oh, sure. Yeah, reaching out to us through our website is a great place to start. Most of the gardens might have a garden coordinator that's associated with that organization. So if you know someone there, you're always welcome to reach right out to them.
Okay.
We're happy to coordinate though too. So you can come to us, and if you have a connection to the VA or you're interested in supporting veterans, we'd love help at the VA Victory Garden. It's across the board. Easter Seals, the Hub. We have gardens that aren't school gardens that are partners of ours as well. So if you have a connection, and if you're curious about, talking about all these gardens, there is a couple sets of maps on our website that you can go take a look and see, they're right in my neighborhood. And they almost certainly will be one that's relatively nearby you if you live in Sheridan.
Yeah, like I said, I looked and couldn't believe it. I'm like, wow. I mean, I see the ones when you drive by, and I know quite a few of the kids at Tongue River and Bighorn that are in 4-H and FFA who've talked about those community gardens. So I knew that they were out there, but I had no idea there were so many in the Sheridan area. So that's awesome. What other things does Rooted in Wyoming do?
That's a great question. There's a lot going on right now. Yeah. I guess one thing that comes to mind is we offer a mini grant program, and I am learning more about that as I kind of become onboarded on the board of directors. I started in January, so I'm still learning about all of these things, but awarded projects funding around the state. So the reach of the organization is now beyond the Sheridan community. It's actually statewide. Wow. And I don't know how many details we can share about that at this point, but there are projects that have been funded even last year, I think, as far as
Evanston Boys and Girls Club. We funded a greenhouse for them last year. And then I don't know how official everything is, but I think we can say at least half a dozen counties statewide we're funding, and multiple projects, more than a dozen. Mm-hmm. So that's exciting to know that folks out there are working on these little collaborative garden spaces, and that they're finding out that we're a resource they can reach out to get a hand.
Awesome. So, and then you guys, there's a big fundraiser that you do usually in the fall, am I correct, that happens?
So for many years, we've done a large fundraiser, a hoedown, or the last several years, we called it a farm to table fundraiser. It's taken on various incarnations. Long before I worked for Rooted in Wyoming, I think I was involved in the very first hoedown when it was out at the Quarterman Ranch north of town, and it was a really rollicking good time. And it's always been a lot of fun. We're looking at doing some similar things and maybe spreading some of those events out over the summer. Those decisions are still sort of in the works. This kind of connects to something I wanted to make sure I mentioned, which was in the interest of expanding food security and spaces that are growing a lot more nutrient-dense food locally beyond just smaller, more educational garden projects. We're really interested in collaborating with local producers, and some of those mini grants that Micah was talking about have actually gone to local producers to help with things like refrigerator space, to help expand their market capacity, even maybe tuition for learning techniques to help manage greenhouse spaces. And so working with those local producers is really central to our mission, because these are the folks that, if we're talking about bringing communities together around local food, these are the folks that are producing the most local food. And so thinking about what we might be able to do for a fundraiser, we always have those local producers as part of the mix. I think at our last fundraiser, we had a list with around 20 different local food producers, everything from honey to lamb and everything in between, that contributed food to the meal that was there at the farm to table dinner. And what we're working with as part of our planning for this summer is to work even more closely with local producers, so that the events are really producer centered, and showcase the, various tastes that they can bring to the table. So I don't know, maybe I have already said too much because all these plans are still in the works, but it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be exciting, and certainly we'll be putting the word out to the community, when and where those events are going to be taking place.
Well, I know that First Northern Bank every year at the youth livestock sale usually buys an animal, and usually a beef, I think, and donates it to the Rooted in Wyoming for the farm to table fundraiser. So thanks to those guys. I know I say thank you on both sides because I help with the livestock sale, but it's great that our community can all tie together and tie this all in.
We are hugely appreciative of their support. Justin West is also a neighbor of Rooted in Wyoming. We're based in the offices out at Bridges, and those offices are there in the old administrative building of what was normative services back in the day.
You're just a mile from me. I'm just past Justin.
Yep. They're our next door neighbors, and just really decent folks, and speaking even just more broadly about the level of generosity and support that we've seen for our mission and our vision. It's an honor to be involved in an organization that means this much to the community. And we do our utmost to be good stewards of all that generosity and really turn it into impactful programming.
We are very fortunate to live where we do.
Yep.
And I've said that from all different aspects of things I've been involved with. We are very fortunate. People are very generous with their time and the monetary donations.
Absolutely. Jumping back to these exciting developments that are kind of in the works. If folks want to follow along for kind of real-time updates, our social media is a really good place to stay in the loop, both on Facebook and on Instagram.
Okay.
Ian has done a really great job at curating and sharing content as it comes up. So we'll definitely make those announcements in those spaces as well if people would like to follow along.
Great. We'll check those out. And like I said, we'll get us the dates. We'll get stuff on our community calendar. And is there anything else you guys want to go over today about Rooted in Wyoming? We've got all the time in the world.
Oh gosh, just that I would say there's a program that we're trying to thread through everything that we're doing, and it's coming out of the Wyoming Hunger Initiative, which is First Lady Jenny Gordon's outreach from the governor's residency, and her outreach as part of the Wyoming Hunger Initiative that's aimed at gardeners is called Grow a Little Extra. And the Grow a Little Extra program, she cooked this up in collaboration with the UW Extension Master Gardeners program and Sensible Nutrition. Sensible Nutrition is also a branch of UW Extension, and they focus on helping folks who are on SNAP benefits get the most out of those benefits and buy healthy, nutritious food and learn how to cook it and make the most out of it. It's an awesome program. Our local Sensible Nutrition person, her name's McKenna Oski. She's such a neat person to collaborate with. We've really enjoyed getting to know her. And so how the Grow a Little Extra program works is that McKenna is going to log all of the produce that gets donated to the various food assistance organizations. And what Rooted in Wyoming is going to do, since we've got so many connections with so many different gardens, we're going to help coordinate the scales and the spreadsheets to get all that information to her. So she'll be one place where you can drop food off, and her office is there at the UW Watt Agriculture Center on the south side of Sheridan campus. But you can also, if things work out the way that we're planning, you'll be able to drop off garden produce right with the food group. Potentially, if you're out in Tongue River, right there at the community cupboard. And then we'll be logging, how many pounds of cucumbers was it? How many pounds of potatoes was it? And then that information is pretty important to go back to a central place so that we can be understanding how much support are our communities able to provide for those who are less fortunate and not able to buy this produce in the grocery store. And, big picture wise, this program is exciting because there's a significant difference in the nutritional content of a tomato that you can raise and get to ripen on the vine than something that's picked green and shipped for 1,000 miles or more.
Oh, absolutely.
It may be the same in name, you call them both a tomato, but the one that you're able to get to ripen on the vine and then eat while it's fresh has way more vitamins, minerals, and nutrients. And that's across the board I just use tomato because it's bright and red and gets people's attention, right? But that's across the board for any of our produce. And so we really feel like it's important to promote this GALE program. Oh, I called it GALE, and maybe I hadn't told you. Grow a little extra. The initials can stand for GALE is what that stands for. That the ability to get really high quality produce to the folks who are less fortunate, that's the kind of thing that can make a big difference in the long run, especially when you think about kids.
Mm-hmm. Well,
another piece of that, sorry.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Is that there has been free vegetable seed made available at all of the extension offices around the state. So we have, I think there were 6 species of vegetables, 6 different varieties made available. We have seed in Johnson County at our extension office. They have seed here at the Sheridan County extension office. So folks can go get that free seed, grow vegetables, and then donate back any extra from their gardens to any of these groups through the extension office.
If someone was interested in doing that, all you do is go down to the south end of that Sheridan College campus to the agriculture complex, pull into the Watt Agriculture Center, breeze through those space age looking doors and just say, hey, is McKenna around? We'd like some grow a little extra seeds. And the secretary's there. They'll know exactly what you're there for. It's exciting, and it's a neat way to connect the community around something that really ends up mattering in the long run.
Well, that's pretty cool that that's available, because I like to garden, but it's just my husband and I. So, there's only so much we can eat. And then it's like, okay, well, what do you do with all the extras? So that is an awesome program to know that's out there that I never knew that was out there. So that'll be fun.
One thing that McKenna does is, if you're thinking, oh gosh, but I always end up with extra leeks or extra zucchini. And I don't know if, folks who are in that type of situation are going to be able to use that type of vegetable. So what one of McKenna's jobs is that whatever the food assistance program, whether it's the food bank or the Salvation Army, when they have a certain vegetable on hand that they think folks might benefit from a recipe, she will provide a recipe, and it goes right along with the vegetable right there at the food bank, so that when people pick up something, maybe an eggplant that they may never have cooked before, there's a simple, easy to follow recipe that goes along with it.
Oh, how nice.
And the Bill, is it I'm catching his last name. It's not McDonald. Bill will work. Bill will forgive me for forgetting all but the first 2 letters of his name, or of his last name. Bill at the Salvation Army is a lovely person, and he spoke to the feedback from folks who've taken these veggies home with a recipe, and the fact that it works out. That recipe actually provides that scaffolding for them to be able to take produce home, and they may have never cooked like this before. There's a difference between cooking and heating, right?
Right.
So there's a lot of things that it's easy to get off the shelf that really all you're doing is just heating it up and maybe doing a little mixing. But if you're getting raw vegetables, you're probably going to really need to know how to cook them. And a good recipe is invaluable in that case. And McKenna, I know, really enjoys putting those together.
Oh, that's great. That's wonderful to hear. What a fun program to be involved in. Anything else? Any other cool programs out there?
Goodness.
Well, besides
there's probably a lot. There's probably a lot.
So many things
Yeah.
running through my head right now. Yeah.
I was going to say, we talked about the Fifth Street greenhouses in terms of how we're getting students in there, but the school district's intention is to get 100 pounds of leafy greens a week into production. And I was kind of scratching my head, like, how many kids does that feed? That's about 300 students a week. So if you think of how many, a lot of kids will eat cold lunch, but that's enough hot lunches for several of the elementary schools in 1 week each week. So that's kind of interesting. And what's good about the Grow a Little Extra program is that, like any sort of production line, the Fifth Street greenhouse is going to have to work out the kinks. And as the school year is going to be coming to a close, before we know it here, a month and a half or so, they're going to just be getting into production. That's just the way that the timeline on the grant funding worked. And so as they get into production in the summer and they have fresh lettuce, fresh lettuce isn't going to keep until the school year starts. And so the school district is being really open-minded and collaborative about where that produce might end up going. And they, of course, have great connections with the food group. And those are folks who we're interested in collaborating with as well.
Well, awesome. Well, guys, thanks so much for being here with us today. We really appreciate it. I've learned a ton. I'm sure our listeners have learned a lot as well. So I want to say thank you to Micah and to Ian for being here with us today with Rooted in Wyoming. If you have questions, give them a shout. Check out their Facebook and their Instagram pages. Go to the website. Lots of information there. You can volunteer. Guys, thanks for being here today.
Our pleasure.
Thank you, Liz.
And we hope to have you back.
Thanks. Sure.
Absolutely. All right. Thank you to Heartland Kubota and True Built Builders for sponsoring our podcast today. And for more news, sports, and podcasts, check out SheridanMedia.com.